How are you? How is your day going?
Good. How are
She
you?
she's a lovely funeral everything in the state of Utah. Lindsay, tell us maybe your most unique experience in funeral service in your lifetime. Your most unique experience.
I guess I don't know. I guess it falls into a few different categories. As we all know, like every day is different, and no two
Hmm.
situations are the same. So there's so many unique things to me. But you know, we obviously deal with every religion, as
Yeah.
we all kind of do. I always feel like it's a unique experience getting to help with a religion that you're not too familiar with, right?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if it's too unique though. I think I think the best thing that I've kind of um, I don't know, the best experience I've had is when I was, on call, but also doing funerals and stuff. And so we had a really busy night. And I'm sure I share this with many people, but we had a really busy night, and you get home, like not home, but back to the funeral home,
Right.
I guess home for some, and you just finish everything, and then you go right to the service, and I think it's a unique thing, like when you're very passionate about it.
Hmm.
You don't really like, you get tired, but you don't really get tired. You can, like, how you can just keep going and going. But
Yeah.
also, I mean, like I said, it's a again, no two situations are the same, so it's a unique thing to be able to help, like, with each person's life, because there's such a story, from, I mean,
Sure.
even just the memory tables, right? For
Yeah.
each person, and you get to learn so much about so many people, and I just think that's really cool. So I don't know,
Yeah.
it's just everywhere,
Yeah. No, I'm
every
with you.
day.
And the energy sometimes comes out of nowhere. Maybe it's a lot of coffee, or maybe it's just running off of adrenaline sometimes because,
Yeah, or even just being told, "Hey, this is beautiful. Like, this is a great service," and just seeing the relief
yeah,
from utter heartbreak. I mean, obviously they're still heartbroken, but they're able to breathe for a moment, when we're there helping. And
right.
I think that's a unique experience for sure, because
I,
it's like that weird calming feeling, like everything feels content, right?
yeah, and I think we thrive off of that being in funeral
Yeah.
service, and it only helps us to be able to service the families better in every aspect because, as we know, it's a job that never ever rests, and so
Yeah.
whenever we have the opportunity to, we do it. But on those days that are long, it's always very helpful to have someone that uh, gives you that little nice nudge in the right direction that you're doing a good job. It's
Yeah.
very beneficial for us. But I think when there is no time, sometimes to wind down, you just got to power through, and
Yeah.
we become very good at that. I'm sure as you are as well.
Yeah, you just kind of find a way. But like I said, I mean, you can have a full day of just really hard things and a really busy day, but
Hmm.
once somebody's like, hey, this is, or even you just see them, like, just again be able to breathe instead of just being absolutely beside themselves. It's the reassurance that, wow, like, I not only do I obviously know what I'm doing, but I'm good at it, and I was able to help people and make this day a lot better, so to speak, than it would
Yeah,
have been, I feel like, and honor that person. So
yeah, that's what it's all about, making that impact and helping them through those tough times. It's a special thing we get to do.
yeah.
What is your day to day like? I know that you operate at a funeral home that has multiple locations. So how does that work for you? And what is a normal day like in Lindsay's shoes?
So some things are a little different now, but back when things were a little busier, it could look like, I was doing vehicles and stuff like that too, and we have quite the fleet, right? So
Yeah.
it's making sure, I mean, again, as you know, every detail matters. You could have a beautiful service and beautiful day, but if one thing goes wrong, or if, like, there's something wrong with the casket, I mean,
The hearse is out of gas.
yeah, yeah, no, yeah, oh gosh, panic. Yeah, no, it's just, I mean, in a dirty hearse, right? Like,
Yeah.
you think, oh, this is so beautiful, but that, I wish that would have been this way or that. And overall, yeah, it might go good, but you never want them to focus on that. I mean, when my grandma passed, right? That was when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
But the funeral home had accidentally left, I don't know why it was with her, but left the I mean, now I kind of do, right? Left the nail bottle polish or nail polish bottle,
Oh
sorry, um,
no.
in her hand, and it was probably because they were painting her nails, right? And then they left it with her to be given back to the family, but instead
Ah,
somebody missed that, and so it was just like, but that's like a detail, right? Like that's one of the first things that I remember, and it wasn't like a huge like, oh my gosh, it ruined things, but it's just a weird. Again, it's just an example of how you remember pretty much everything.
you have to be
And
vigilant.
so yeah, so when I was doing cars, I mean, obviously that's, making sure they're fueled, making sure all the service is up to date, oil
Mm-hmm.
changes and whatever needs to be done cosmetically and mechanically, car washes and details. And, because you don't know if the spouse or who, is going to be riding in the funeral coach with you. Um, Not to mention that's their last ride, right? So even if they're not in the front, it still matters that it's clean and it's presentable.
Right.
Sometimes things happen, but we just try to do our best to make sure everything is good. And then
Yeah.
we obviously have the limos and the bigger limos and all those vehicles. So, making sure, even though I'm not doing vehicles now, I mean, now, when you do a funeral service, you still need to make sure, obviously, the gas is in there. You need to take the time. You need to show up early enough to, I mean, as you know, anything can happen. So even if you
Sure
think
does.
everything's ready to go, you might as well make some more time because it's better to just sit than be unprepared.
What was a
So then,
curveball that you have were thrown at in the past? Did you deal with anything that was a stressful situation that you had to handle as far as the fleet of vehicles?
like, so we have a really unique car. It's a rosewood classic coach. It's called an Ovale.
Oh,
It has Rolls Royce parts. It's an original. It's
yeah.
a classic coach, but it has current modern things to it as well. That was difficult because it's one of the only ones out here, and they're out of Arkansas, so
Mm-hmm.
they it's a beautiful car, but it's if you don't know what you're doing, and you just gotta be on top of things like that because
Yeah.
they're not like an everyday vehicle, but with how many funeral services you do sometimes, um, you just again you got to be prepared and stuff. I think that the most stressful situation though that happened, obviously we made sure that the family didn't know because you don't want the family to deal with they don't need the behind the scenes stuff, but you always want everything to
Everything's
just
pretty
go
in the front.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. So on our end though, we had a situation where just one of the limos just was giving us trouble.
Mm-hmm.
It ended up being a mechanical issue, but um, it just and a flat tire overall. But
Ah,
the thing is it was in the middle of nowhere. Luckily, we were able to handle it and get somebody to come help in time. But it's those situations where, because we service all over, um,
right.
it's those situations where you can't be right there that you're like, wait, because you gotta fix it fast.
Sure.
But those are things that just can happen. So you just got to be prepared. And
Yeah.
luckily,
Was the
the
family
family.
with you during that, or what was the
No,
situation?
it was in between. So since they were out of it was like out of not out of state, but
Your
it was
area?
further away.
Yeah.
We had time in between where there was a break for everybody to travel there safely because it was a couple-hour drive.
That was lucky.
So it just happened to be right in the right timeline where we were able to get on it and get a new tire in there. And
Good.
again, it didn't affect them, so that was great. But on our end, you're thinking, oh no, what's
Yeah.
gonna happen? You
Absolutely.
know.
Absolutely.
So
How often are you
yeah.
seeing, since it seems like you've used limos like a decent amount, what percent of families do you see using limos? It's very rare nowadays, at least in our area. So I'm curious
Yeah.
how the difference is around the country.
So we don't. Um, I wouldn't say we use them constantly, but we do. We there's certain packages and stuff that have it in it, and it's like either the family can use it or not. But We do have a pretty nice one where it seats, I think, up to 12 or 13, I
Yeah.
believe. And it's a nicer Mercedes, nicer vehicle.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's almost like it sounds bad to say this, but it's almost like a party bus, right? But it's
Yeah.
more reserved. We stock it with,
Death bus.
yeah, yeah. We stock it with either,
Liquid
one of the
death.
fun memories I have. One of the fun memories I have with it is this family. They had their loved one pass, and it was grandkids that were wanting to ride in the back with
Mm-hmm.
the spouse of the loved one, right? And so, because it's the bus that it is, number one, they all get to share that experience with each other. I mean, yeah, certain limos, it's a more intimate seating as well. Like it's like a circular, like,
Oh,
you get to sit side by side versus row by row.
that's
I mean,
nice.
that's fun, but you're also turning around, and I don't know. It's a more inclusive kind of thing, right? Um, but also, like I said, we stock it with treats and snacks from either
Oh,
things that the loved one who passed away liked, or that the
wow.
family likes. That
That's a nice
way,
touch.
exactly, because if the last thing I'm gonna be, like, honestly doing is remembering to drink water and eat, because when you're grieving, most of the time, I mean, depending on the situation, you're not really being conscious of that. So
Right.
it's nice to have right there and have things that they like to kind of help them keep going throughout the day, especially when we have long days.
They are. The
So
funerals
yeah,
are
that
long
experience I
days.
had, yeah, um, that experience I had was cute because it was all the grandkids and like I said, the spouse, and they were playing songs that their loved one liked, and so they
Oh.
were all singing them, and but then at the end they played Spooky Scary Skeletons, and this was literally in June, so it was the cutest thing because they were laughing and smiling, and
Yeah,
the families just really, really love that because, again, it puts a nice touch on that drive to and from the cemetery.
it does.
We will go to your house, pick you up from the house. So it does get used a lot more than the average, I think, just because we offer that option to get you to and from your house no matter what the time. Because I mean, who, again, you're crying, you're upset, it's nobody really wants to drive, in my opinion, or worry about picking other people up, making sure everybody's there. You can just set a time, everybody can meet you there and be picked up, and
Yeah.
you just worry about showing up, and grieving and getting through the day.
Yeah, it
We handle
gives.
everything else.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit easier on the family that there's less to worry about. And I
Yeah.
think it's a nice thing. I remember doing that when my grandparents passed away years and years ago. All of our family getting to be together in the limos, or it just made it a very. It had us all connected at a different level that we were, and it was such a beautiful, nice thing that all of us were able to be together the whole time, as opposed to
Yeah.
driving multiple different cars. And it's something that has gone away a little bit, but I personally have seen the value in that, and
Hmm.
it's a great thing that you do to go above and beyond and provide those little extra touches, because that's what
Hmm.
this industry is all about, is those little extra touches, and that's how you distinguish yourself and set yourself apart from competition. So really love
Exactly.
that. I think that's a lot of that's something that a lot of funeral homes could incorporate or should incorporate if they have that ability to.
Sorry, I got a call and it turned it off. I
It's okay.
apologize.
No worries, no worries. Okay. So tell me a little bit more about what you do with the funeral home. I know we talked in the past that you've done some things to help promote the funeral home in the area. Give us some of the things that you've done that other funeral homes might be able to incorporate in their area.
So I think it's very important that you be involved with your community. Our funeral home in general is very involved with our community, and our locations. And so that being said, we are given the opportunity, no matter the position you hold within the company, to get out there, be a face of the company, and just help, I
Yeah,
guess, and make it known that we're there, and we're there to provide a service and be there when it's necessary. It's an unfortunate need, but it is a need nevertheless,
It
right?
is,
So
yeah.
some things that we do, that we've done before is, our communities have 4th of July parades,
Hmm.
and other parades throughout the summer. Um, we put one of our that coach that I mentioned. We put that funeral coach in those parades, and we drive and walk with it.
Yeah.
We have other people that attend it, in groups that we sponsor, and so we're out there. We're putting faces to stuff. We have this really big like Halloween event. um, it's kind of like a big trunk or treat, but it brings together the community and all these sponsors. I mean, even the police department, the local hospital,
Wow.
everybody has kind of like a booth,
Yeah.
and it draws thousands of people.
No
During this,
kidding.
we have like a screened movie on like a pop-up screen, so people in line can still like watch a movie. Again, it's a trunk or treat, so all the little kids can get their treats.
How
It's
fun.
kind of cute. Our grounds crew even has like a section because we show off some of our vehicles,
Yep.
and then our grounds crew has a section, and it's just funny because they'll have like little skeletons driving the vehicles and stuff like that. It's just a cute touch.
Yeah.
It's
We
it's a fun thing to do, and now we're having food trucks, and we have a live band. We even do like a
Wow.
little haunted house on the side. So
That's big
that's,
time.
yeah, that's one of the festive things.
We do that
Another,
too. At our
yeah.
funeral home, my mom's done it the past few years. She's not involved with the funeral home too much, because she does a lot of nannying and
Hmm.
a lot of stuff with
She does
kids.
her
She's
thing.
just the best with kids,
Yeah.
and she hosts a trunk or treat every year at the funeral home too. So a lot of people from the neighborhood, surrounding area, they all come, they decorate their
Hmm.
cars, and she has a
Yeah.
big prize for the winner and all this stuff, and the kids love it. And we do the same thing, but I bring out the hearse as my vehicle to
Yeah, that's what
decorate.
we do.
So I've made it like one year where like the little kids could like climb through the back, and it was like a little maze for them to go through. And it's stuff like that it connects you with everyone in your community, and it just shows you or shows them your support in every way possible. And sometimes it's
Hmm.
good to have like a little bit of fun, because we deal with challenging things, and it's good to show that different side to the people that are
Yeah.
going to be using our services too.
Well, it puts a brighter side on things,
Hmm.
right? Because I mean, you still get the people that are kind of creeped out by it. For an example, I got some funny comments, with us having our funeral coach in the parade, and then they're like, "Oh, it's a mortuary," like, just all kinds of stuff. I'm sure you can imagine was
Sure.
said, but some of it's really funny. Some of it's like, "Oh, don't say that."
Yeah.
But then you got the elderly people that are standing up for it, saying, "Well, I want to ride in that," and their wives or whatever saying, "No, no,
Not
don't
in the
say
back.
that." Yeah, and they're like, "Wait." But and it's funny, but it puts a, I mean, just like all the exposure, I think these days that the death care industry is getting just on
Hmm.
social media, for example.
Yeah.
um I think it's necessary because it makes it a little less scary. The unknown is usually pretty scary, right? So,
Yeah.
in the past, when I thought like, what happens when I die, like, are they gonna judge me, or what's gonna happen? I mean, seeing the other side of things, obviously the public's not gonna see our side that we see,
Right.
but see, like, knowing that people care, meeting the people, and seeing the efforts that they make, and how much they care, and treating those people like it's your own family. I mean, it goes a long way
It
because
does.
it comforts them, and they know that they can trust you. I
Yeah.
guess, and so I think, again, just opening up room for conversation about, like, wait, what's that? Because when I was little, one of the first experiences I ever had with understanding what a mortuary or a funeral even
Hmm.
was driving down the street with my mom, and I just saw something that said mortuary, and that day I was just asking what every building was. But I was already kind of interested in that stuff, and once she explained it to me, like, I remembered. So you mentioned, letting the kids go in the back of the funeral coach, like that. I would have loved that. And it's cool that we have that opportunity now, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can see more things, and be more connected with the people on that side, not just firefighters and police, but also
Yeah.
your funeral home, you know.
Yeah. Expands the amount of things that someone can do in their life and expands their horizons. So, yeah, it's a great thing. I'm assuming from that point on, that's how you knew you wanted to get into funeral service. I would like to hear your story of how it began and where it led you to be where you are today.
Okay, so it's a whole thing.
Let's hear
I
it.
love talking about it. So when I was 8, that's the earliest memory I kind of have. I had attended some funerals, not super close to me, but family.
Mm-hmm.
My mom wasn't, I mean, they obviously attended funerals and stuff, but they didn't take me to everyone. They kind of waited until it was
Yeah,
appropriate. And by that, I think they
that's
meant
normal.
I wouldn't be running around and screaming and stuff.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
I mean, I know sometimes you can't prevent that, but it just, if you can, and, kids don't really understand, and you want to be there grieving, it's probably best to, you know, again, it depends on the situation, right?
Right.
But I think I understand why they kind of did that,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't have remembered it anyway. So my earliest one I remember, it was a Catholic service,
Mm-hmm.
and I just remember like seeing um, the smoke and the holy water and just all these. I just remember these little flashes of it. I don't remember the whole service,
Right.
but that is a core memory for me, and it was
Oh,
very neat. And from an early age, I was interested in that stuff.
yeah.
My parents would watch Tales from the Crypt. I know it's a little out of pocket, but
Yeah.
the intro when it would, go down the stairs and then he'd pop out, just seeing like a skeleton and seeing that, and I'm like, wait, that was a person, even though that's a show, like as a little kid, I was more interested in that stuff and Beetlejuice and Nightmare Before Christmas,
Sure.
not Disney princesses and stuff like that. So I knew I had an interest in the kind of
Connected to the other
different side
side.
of things. Yeah. And then um my first big funeral I attended was my grandma. Was when I was about 15 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the most involved and my first experience that I had ever really had. I was there when she passed away.
Yeah.
Held her hand as it happened, and so that was,
That's hard.
that's a different experience.
Yeah.
But it kind of, I felt obligated. I just felt obligated. I know I was young, but I felt like and I mean, she had her kids and, our other family members there. Anybody could have, but we were really close, and I felt obligated to be there with her through that process.
Sure.
And I did. And it was a really good feeling. Not then, but I mean, like now it's a really good feeling knowing that I was able to support her through that. But,
Yep.
um, then my mom, she allowed me to help with, um, just some stuff and being there to
Planning
support,
process.
right?
Yeah.
And oddly enough, this grandma was cared for through my mortuary, um, in a
Oh.
location that I work at these days,
Small
which is
world,
not
yeah.
even, yeah, it was not even the intention. But that's one of my core memories too, is walking into that funeral home. And now every time I do, I flash back to seeing my grandma.
Yeah.
I'm a big closure person, and
Yeah.
I needed to I needed to see my grandma in that setting.
Right.
Like I said, I had only been to a couple funerals, but for me, I really, again, I mean, yeah, she died holding my hand, but I needed to just see the casket and the just everything, because
It's
I don't know, I
it's a
did.
part of the
So my
process.
mom, yeah, the grief process. My grandma was a very private person, so she didn't want a huge public viewing. But my mom, I mean, she's not a real viewing person either. She doesn't really need that.
Hmm.
I'd rather remember them as they were. But in my opinion, I mean, everyone's different, and I just can't. I get and respect that,
Yeah.
obviously. But for me, I need different things. So she
Everyone's
was
different.
kind
Yep.
enough to, exactly, um, kind enough to allow me to have a quick little viewing, a private viewing, if you will, with my grandma, and then close the casket and
That's
go
nice.
forth with the private graveside. But um, then 3 months after that, my aunt. I mean, we knew my aunt was dying already because she had cancer,
Yeah.
but it ended up being like a hospice situation,
Oh,
so we had to do
jeez.
hospice, and so I became familiar with hospice. And then
Yeah.
again, this was 3 months after my grandma, so I was like, I felt the obligation to step up again and be there for my mom. I mean, my mom, like my parents are, well, my dad's passed now, but they're still
I'm
married
sorry.
technically. So it's not like my mom didn't have support, but it's just, it's your family and you feel the need to kind of be there, right?
No
So
doubt.
I felt like, okay, well, I kind of dealt with grandma. I know it's probably different, but I want to be involved and help how I can. It was a rewarding kind of feeling when you assist with something like that, even when
Yeah.
it's your family, because you feel like you helped in some way, in
Right.
my opinion. So with my aunt, that was an interesting situation because we we kind of, it was weird because, again, I mentioned it's nice that people get to be familiar with the death process and get to be
Mm-hmm.
more informed now about what happens behind the scenes. There's a lot of like TikToks and videos and
Right.
YouTube and podcasts and things that you can go
Yeah.
listen to and hear. But we didn't know that you could cut clothes on the back, right? So my mom's
A hidden
panicking, like,
secret.
well, yeah, I can't. It's an industry secret, but she just, I mean, we didn't know that. So it's kind of funny thinking about now, just a panic because there was so much focus around the fact
They're
that,
not gonna fit.
my aunt died from, yeah, from cancer. So she was not her normal size. So we're sitting there panicking, like, well, how do we, like, we got to go get her new clothes. We didn't have to, but we wanted to, right? I mean,
Right.
but what size? So we were like channeling my size of clothes. I'm out here trying on like a blazer, like pants, like, well, this might
Shoulder
look like because I was
pads.
younger. Yeah, so I'm out here trying on the clothes that my aunt's gonna be, buried in, and it's just like, okay, well,
Weird.
if we would have known that we could have just fit it on, that would have been helpful. But now you know that, so I don't think we would have been doing that. But
Right.
it was still nice to be able to do that and make sure, hey, she's gonna have something nice that looks good on her, and that we know will look good on her. Um, but then I got to help write her obituary, and that was really neat. Like, and then
Yeah.
seeing it published, like that was really cool because it's like
Mm-hmm.
that's forever, and whoever looks at that, it's a tribute to my aunt, and I had a part in
That's a
that, so
nice
that
way
was
of
really
looking at it.
cool.
Yeah.
Um, and she had some pretty cool played, like "Don't Fear the Reaper" by Blue Oyster Cult, and
Sure.
some Dio, but
Cowbell.
yeah, so it was just, that was my first kind of really personalized service, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
if you will. And so I got to see, although there were attendants that might not agree with that music, they weren't rude about it. They just kind of were like a little surprised,
Bobbed their
but
head a little.
exactly. But they were all like, well, that was her. So,
Right.
that's what you want to go for. That's
Yep.
what she wanted. That's what she asked for. And we executed it. So
Yeah.
that was really cool to see that that was an option, right? Um, and then after that, I just had different people from different areas of my life pass away. And my
Jeez.
dad had friends that I was very involved with my dad's life. My dad was a car salesman
Mm-hmm.
and a fleet manager, but a different kind of fleet manager, just sales. He was a sales guy, but before that, did some other stuff. So
Right.
he was just very well known. Um, so even just hearing about those funerals, sometimes I would attend with him,
Sure.
and just my point is, I got a lot more exposure to all different kinds of services at that point. And then it started, unfortunately, getting to be like close friends and
Oh.
closer people to me because it's just my generation for some reason. It's I don't even know if, like, it's weird to think about a high school reunion 50 years from now because, like, I don't even know who's going to even be there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, addiction and mental health, suicide, that's very prominent, in my area. And
Yeah.
just, I mean, I'm sure it's all over, right? But I've just lost a lot of friends. So I guess what I'm
Jeez,
saying
I'm
is,
sorry. That's terrible.
that's okay. So that was my next exposure to it. And, obviously every situation's unique. I mean, if I lose my grandpa and you lose yours, I'm not going to say I know how that is. I can say, well, I've lost a grandfather too, but I'm never going to say that because our relationships could be different, our experiences could be
Right.
different. And so it was just all very, very different experiences. So when it really kind of hit, though, I think it started really affecting me. I mean, my grandma passing, it changed my entire life. But,
Yeah.
my aunt was kind of expected, but that was still hard. After that, like I said, I had more people. But when it started really getting at me was I had a boyfriend pass, and that was in,
Jeez.
yeah, that was in
Oh,
2014. So
oh my
that was rough.
goodness.
And then another one in 2016. But it was, so it's just like they've died in
Holy
kind of
cow.
different, tragic, unexpected ways, right? But those really, like the first one, I got to be pretty involved, and people would kind of say like I was like the female version of him. So it was, I got this sense of comfort, I guess, that I brought to people by just
Yeah.
being there. Obviously, I was hurting too, but I saw what it was like to be there as a group and like be like just be supportive
Right.
and be able to bring comfort, right? And so just being involved like with cleaning the house and cleaning things up, like,
Yeah, those
so I
little
guess my
things.
point is, I went from helping writing obituaries to helping pick music for things to helping and being involved with every step with that. Um, and then again, it was just friends here and there in between, few and far
Yeah.
between those losses. But then what really got me, um, and again, this is just the loss portion of what loss and what I've experienced on that end and why that got me here. Obviously, I mentioned I've had interest in like the darker side and the weirder
Yeah.
side and the unknown side of things. And then I did mention the story of how, I was driving past that mortuary at 8 and asked my mom about it. And she gave me,
Yeah.
minimal, respectful information.
Yeah.
But I just remember being so interested with that.
Hmm.
And then when YouTube came about, obviously, oh, what's an autopsy? What's embalming?
There
And
you
just all
go.
this weird stuff. And, the questions that I heard my mom being asked throughout things. And I'm just like, well, mom, what's a cremation? And, you get to learn all that stuff. So it's bits and pieces. But back to the loss portion, I mean, that's just, that's just me saying that the interest has always been there. I just
Right.
had misinformation, and I had the understanding that you had to, again, every state's different, but I thought you had to fully graduate and do all these things beforehand.
Yeah.
And I was a young single mom, so that
That's
wasn't really on the
hard.
table right
Yeah.
away. So I just assumed that maybe it won't ever happen, and I hadn't really looked into it. But what kind of pushed me was when I lost my dad, and that
Yeah.
was March of 2020, which was
Hmm.
crazy because it was during the pandemic, kind of. He
Yeah, right
entered
at
the
the beginning.
hospital at the beginning of March that year, which COVID in our area had already kind of started hitting. The hospitals, the beds were pretty much almost full with patients lining the hallways and so forth.
Jeez.
And they were setting up tents outside for people who were coming in to be, I guess, segregated, if you will, from the other
Right.
people so that, because again, it was the start of COVID, so to speak, over here, and no one really knew what to expect. So it's better to overdo it than underdo it, right?
Hmm.
So I just remember seeing those tents, and it was crazy because it looks like those houses that are being fumigated or
Yeah.
whatever with bugs. It's like
Yeah.
these circus tents, and you're like, what is
Do not
happening?
enter.
Yeah. So that was wild because that was the beginning of March, and then
You should use that for
he
your
passed
haunted
away.
house on the funeral home grounds for next year.
Yeah, no, you need to do that. We have some old caskets that obviously were,
Incorporated. Yeah.
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 So yeah, but yeah, so March of 2020, so he passed on the day of the pandemic. It wasn't even COVID related, which is crazy. It was
Yeah.
brain cancer, which is brutal.
Jeez.
But that kind of, I mean, again, since I had helped with my aunt and stuff, that's my father, so I was there the entire time.
Yeah.
And whatever I needed to help with, I mean, he got lucky enough to be in the hospital, but do hospice, but at the hospital because it was a weird situation. They didn't want to send him home because they really couldn't. He wouldn't have
Right.
made the ride, but also
But they knew it was
COVID.
coming.
So
Right.
they just
Oh,
kind of
that.
segregated us in a room, and that was nice to have. But it was the afterwards. I'm like, well, my mom's ready to go because I mean, she didn't want to see any of it. But I'm thinking, well, what's gonna happen now? How do they come and get him? And I
Right.
didn't have anyone to ask, but that was my dad, and I wish I would have known because I wish I would have stayed and watched or helped, right? Like,
Yeah.
but so I felt bad. And then when when they went to have his when we went to have his service, if you want to call it that, because of the COVID times and the unfamiliarity with everything, he was that funeral home's first. COVID funeral, if you will. So their first service since it
Sure.
even happened. So they didn't even know what to do. I don't even think Zoom was an option at that
Yeah, it
point. I
was a
think it
state
was
of
starting
flux
to
back
be.
then. Yeah.
Yeah, we missed that mark. We quite literally had like a very short viewing. It had to be like timed. It
Yep.
was very, I mean, it was just very short.
I remember. Yeah.
We couldn't hug each other. There were literally signs that
Mm.
said no hugging. And I'm like, this is
Good
the one
luck.
time I actually want hugs from people. Like, I'm not a hugger except
Help
for
me
right now,
out.
and I can't. Yeah. So I was like, okay. And then everyone's in their weird, like, it just felt odd. And it almost, I mean, you think if you're at a service and everybody's standing with their family groups, usually you're at least conversing. But it was, we were so segregated,
Right.
it felt like everyone didn't like each other or something. And then that just kind of made
Yeah.
it weird. It
Distant.
took from the focus, kind of, because it's like, wait, like, we're not supporting each other, but we are. I don't know. This is not what I'm used to. Um,
Yeah.
and, we kind of got to say goodbye to him. And then, so the other thing is, we only had so many pallbearers because we were only allowed so many people at the funeral.
Right.
And so some of the staff had to help and step in, but nobody asked me. So I was like, wait, if we're going to have random people step in, I mean, I'm sorry,
I'd rather
with
help
all
out.
respect, obviously, I'm going to help because that's, so they were nice. And then I got a taste of what it's like on the other side to be the family that switches up the thing on him last minute. So sorry, but
Classic. Yeah.
that's my dad. So yeah, so I got to, that was my first, not my first, but I mean, it was another time that I got to help be a pallbearer, I
Right. It
guess.
was like a catalyst for the next thing. Right.
Yeah. And what was kind of weird is since we kind of didn't have a normal service, I don't know why, but I had it in my mind to use my voice memo recorder on my phone and record the entire service.
Wow.
So I'm out here already recording the service and doing all this stuff that we do with all these
Yeah.
services anyway. Um, so it's almost kind of been like, I try not to sound cocky, but I just feel like with my experience and stuff, like I've just somehow experienced so much and saw the needs of people and saw what worked and what didn't, and so I kind of have known what to do.
Through
And I know that
your
I
own
bring
personal.
comfort to other people, and I'm able to be the point of like strength in that moment, because obviously we all feel, and we have emotions, and
Yeah.
even when it's not our family, like it's people we're helping. I mean, yeah, there's days where I go home and cry. I'm sure many of us have, almost probably all of us. But
It happens. Right.
you go home. I mean, they don't see that always, but
No.
it hurts you too. So you feel
Yeah.
for the families, but it's weird. It's like almost like when I have a friend die or something. I feel like a purpose, like I have a purpose to do
It's your
something, like an
duty.
obligation, like
Yep.
I said, to just help and help them get through it.
Yeah.
Because I know that they're gonna get through it. But I know that if I'm helping, can make sure, especially if I know them, that I can put the personal touch on that is necessary,
Yep.
and and just be what that family needs in that moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, so all of that kind of combined, like I said, my dad was March of 2020, so that kind of, after that, it kind of pushed me to start looking. I actually did weddings at that point and was the florist. So,
Hey,
like I said,
perfect
all these random
transition.
things. I mean, I was a marketing director too. So, like, all those things combined
It's the perfect
kind of led me
repertoire.
to, yeah, I mean, I saw all that, right? And so, I mean, I didn't know it all. Even if I have all that training and background, every day is different, right? You're always
Yeah.
learning. And that's what I like
Yeah.
about this stuff. But you I didn't really do the whole wedding thing. I mean, I didn't really have a lot of experience. I did actually, now that I think about it, your first question about a unique experience. So there was a family, the last family I did a wedding for. Um, I finished their wedding, congratulated them, and that was it. After
Yeah.
that, I kind of quit weddings. It wasn't my thing. One night I was on call and I show up to this house
No.
and I'm just there, and the family just looks so familiar, and I'm just like, I don't know why. And then leaving, knowing that I'm going to help on the service, because I like to help on the services. We do things a little differently, but I like to help on the services of the families that I do the calls for, because for me, it's nice to have a familiar face,
Yes.
and not be switched through a lot of people.
Yeah, as
Sometimes you
much as
can't
you
help that.
can. Right,
Yeah,
right,
exactly. But, you know, I like to do that if possible. I like to be there during the call, give them that experience, and know that I'm going to take care of your loved one. You just take care of yourself right now. Like,
right.
we are handling this. We'll see you. It's not goodbye. It's see you later, for now. And I like to follow up with them, right? So this family, I already kind of anticipated wanting to help with their funeral service portion, but it hit me on the drive back to the mortuary, like, oh my gosh, this family is the one I did the wedding for.
Too
And then,
funny.
yeah, I didn't mention it, but at the funeral service, one of the people ended up recognizing me, and we discussed it, and it was nice to have that, because they were like, well, you helped us a lot with that, so and you've been such a help with this. It's actually pretty nice. And then, unfortunately, a few weeks
The
later, they
highs and
had another,
lows.
yeah, they had another service that they, a loss in their family. But
Yeah,
at that point, they were like, well, we know for sure that you'll take care of us. And so
yeah,
that was a really unique experience too. And again, I mean, helping people that um, I've done funeral services for old teachers of mine that I've had.
sure.
And it's crazy to think back on, like, one day they were teaching me stuff in school, and little did I know later on I would be such an important
Yeah,
part of their life, like they were mine,
you
right?
never
Like,
know. Yeah,
exactly. And that's another thing, is I've cared. So like I said, it just kind of, losing my dad kind of pushed me into that. But, and losing all the people close to me, I just felt like, well, I want to help with all of this, so I might as well see what I can do to get in the industry.
sure.
So I got lucky enough to get into the industry. It all just, I guess what I'm trying to say in a big novel is that it all played a different part. The
Yeah,
interest and the experience and all of that kind of all led up to it. And it's all, like I said, being a florist, being a wedding person, um, that all kind of led up to, or I guess put together a puzzle of
yep,
what helps me now, like, in my
yep,
day to day doing things, and I can feel confident, with the flowers or whatever, because I know the flowers. Or if some
sure.
of the arrangement falls apart, I can put it back together because I designed them before. Like,
Yeah,
it's just, I feel like I've ended up where I need to be, and I know that I make a difference in our families.
yeah,
And so ever since starting, I don't see myself doing anything else, because people say it's important that you love what you do. I mean, I can go for days and not even feel like I'm working. I It is so rewarding, like I said, being able to be there and help that family, and give a send off that's personal to them,
yeah.
and do what they need. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's beautiful, and that's great that you were able to use the challenges that you had in your life and channel that into something good, and take all of your
Yeah.
experiences and relate them together and do something that's for the greater good. And um, it's a beautiful thing to see that all come together as like that missing puzzle piece for
Hmm.
you. And we wish you that continues on, and hopefully helps you in your career, and it's something that continues to pay forward, because you're making a difference in other people's lives. And it's just a great thing, and it's good to see when people find that calling, and find that niche for themselves, because sometimes it is challenging, and it takes a lot of highs and lows, like you've definitely been
Yeah.
through, to find that point, that destination. So that's really great, and we love to hear that. And we hope that it continues on for you. And we just appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. It was a lot of fun getting to hear your whole story and how you came to be. So we appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. And I think, like you said, it's nice to find. I mean, it's nice to see people involved and wanting to do this as a job or career, if you will. I don't call it a job, but
Yeah,
it's nice to see it work out for people who are as passionate about it. And I appreciate what you do, helping give
thank you.
exposure, and getting everything out there, and letting people know that there's a brighter side to things, and that we all just want to help each other, and
Yep,
giving us all an avenue to learn more. So thank you for
there's no
taking the
doubt.
time and having this,
Thank
and I
you.
appreciate you.
I
Hmm.
appreciate it. You have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us on the Mortuary
Yeah,
Show.
you too. Bye bye.